Well, I want to talk to Steven Woolfe now, Director for the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity. Steven, welcome.
Good afternoon, Russell.
Good afternoon. Can I just read you some of the text that we've got already? I mean, we're only 37 minutes into the show. We've had, loads and loads and loads. Let me just read you some, just to set the scene. Not to influence you, Steven, because I know you definitely have a view on this, but this is what people listening and watching this show think. The Sentencing Council need to earn the right to be independent from the voting public, and they are proving that they despise what the majority of us think. The Sentencing Council should be disbanded, says Stewart. Sentencing guidelines, says Wayne Linnett. Robert Jenrick gave them a way to sort this out. He gave them an amendment to current legislation that could be implemented immediately, but Mahmood, who is the Justice Secretary, of course, said no, we aren't going to do that. So I believe they don't want it to be changed, i.e. the Labour government, and their verbal opposition is exactly that, just verbal. Debbie Dobson says judges don't need the background of the criminal, they need just evidence. The person's background shouldn't be a factor. I couldn't agree more, Debbie. And Lorraine says, finally, we should not be surprised at the deliberate, concerted efforts of the Sentencing Council to create a two-tier justice system that favours minorities and illegal migrants over the indigenous population of Great Britain. Labour's Shabana Mahmood has made a lot of noise but has taken absolutely no proper action against this perverse quango. She has the power to disband it and to stop this madness, but she has chosen not to do so. Therefore, I have to conclude that this is exactly what Labour wants, and Mahmood has been playing a smoke and mirrors game and fully intends for two-tier justice to prevail. All our democratic values are being eroded by this government. It is sinister and it is dangerous, says Lorraine. Your thoughts, Steven?
Well, I'm a barrister. I have spent time in the criminal justice system and I have both prosecuted and defended. And I will say that the Sentencing Council guidelines, as I knew them when I was practicing, were a very useful vehicle and a very useful tool at that time to help those involved in the criminal justice system understand the kind of range of sentences that are available for the judge to be able to sentence an individual, and thus give us as guides, both as prosecutor and defend counsel, to be able to advise our clients. What I fully understand is where they have enhanced this particular sentencing council now to look further beyond just normal aspects of your background, you know, whether you'd had previous criminal intentions, whether you'd been impacted by violence at home, for example, that might have been relevant to a case where a woman had been attacked by a previous boyfriend and committed assault. All of those were relevant, and I think most people found those particularly insightful and helpful. Where it's clear is that you have both sides of the political divide, Conservatives and Labour, saying that this is effectively a two-tier system. And I've seen arguments for those saying, well, we should leave the independence of the Sentencing Council alone. I do believe in the independence, and I do believe that they should be left alone. But where there is a groundswell of opinion that perhaps they have overstepped the mark, then I think either they should listen or the government steps in.
Well, I think
and this is where you enter the world of politics.
Yeah, no, democratically, certainly, it should be of the will of the people. I mean, you know, it is these people, you know, whether it's the law, judges, lawmakers and so on, that surely should be at the behest of the people they serve. OK, well, let's switch over to this whole French issue. And obviously I've been a little tongue-in-cheek this morning talking about the fact that actually when it comes to law breaking, the French should be taken to task. The French are responsible, I think, for almost enabling and empowering, I guess, migrants to our shores by way of boats and illegal migration. They have a case to answer, don't they, the French? Particularly if we've got a contract with them to help prevent migration to this country illegally, because there is, what's the law of contract as a barrister? Offer, acceptance, consideration. Well, we've offered them to do something, they've accepted, and there's a consideration of £500 million of our taxpayers' money, Steven. Why aren't they doing the job that they contracted to do?
Well, they're not doing the job that they're contracted to do, and it's just more than that money that you've mentioned there. It's actually about £2 billion that they've been handed in various forms of grants since 2014. 2014 was the first time I went to one of the camps in a wet, cold December when they were building what was the new Sangat, and within 6 months that was filled. And ever since then, they've taken more money from us and never really delivered. And this is not surprising. They are very clued up in how to evade their own laws and evade the kind of international issues that would impact them by not doing the job with Britain, because they know, just like the people smugglers know, that Britain is too frightened of actually engaging with international law. Because we're very clear, and the government has known it through the Home Office Select Affairs Committee, that there is the law of the sea, that we have the opportunity to return boats back to France, that our border forces could do the same and force France to do this. But we don't. And that's down to the issue of the Foreign Office and also the Treasury. The Foreign Office, because they're too frightened of involving themselves with an international incident with our French friends, as they call it, and the Treasury, because they don't want to impact any agreements that we have with France over trade. And that's why we won't do it. The people
Stephen,
smugglers therefore benefit from it.
It's a
massively.
completely and utterly one-way street. So we don't want to upset the French, so we throw money at them because we think that's a way of placating the problem. But they don't seem to have any issue actually enabling people into boats and, you know, almost pushing them into the water and then saying to them, it is alleged by the Sun expose on this today, that they are told, look, as you get into kind of, you know, the waters between France and Britain, and as you drift towards Britain, you will be picked up in less than an hour, don't you worry. So that doesn't seem that they're being particularly obstructive and preventative in terms of stopping those people leaving the shores of Calais, does it? So why are we so scared of what the French think, for goodness sake? They don't seem to care at all what we think of them enabling 40,000 migrants to come across the Channel every year.
And you're right. Why don't we do it? I mean, this is a big question that we've asked.
We've got no backbone. It's just backbone, isn't it?
It's absolutely right. I mean, I've written to the Home Office, I've written to governments in the past asking them why they don't carry on with the opportunities that they have through international law to return boats. And you never get a response, not properly anyway. And it comes down to backbone. There comes down to a real fear in government. But I also think there is something more deliberate now, and that comes out with the issues that we've seen with Boris Johnson, and recently we've had various former conservative ministers saying that we need mass immigration to fill our construction jobs because of low birth rates. This again is the issue of the Treasury. So I think there is a deliberate intention from government not to upset our European friends, because they also believe it will help economically through GDP. And that is wrong.
But
we
Stephen,
now know that living standards are falling.
They still think that. I mean, I'm not an economist or a politician, but even I know that if you allow tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in by way of net migration, whether they're legal or illegal, particularly illegal, if they don't contribute to the economy, either in terms of qualification, job role, wealth, or as employers, then they become a detractor. They become a taker from the economy. So how can we have, you know, the likes of Philip Hammond and others, you know, supposedly clever people that have been around the block politically, that presumably most of them have been to Oxford and Cambridge, as I understand it. How do they not understand that actually bringing in people that don't contribute doesn't therefore grow GDP per capita? How on earth do they not understand that? And how on earth do they get elected in the first place?
Well, they get elected because they know how to work the system and get the, as some would say, Liberal Democrats or CNOs in the Conservative Party, or those people who don't really believe in a great deal as long as it means that they're elected. This is where the political issues are going on. But why they don't turn tail is because it's institutionalized. They've been institutionalized at university from professors and lecturers who believe in this Keynesian idea of GDP rather than GNP per capita. They've never been really challenged by either those economists at the Bank of England or in the Treasury to actually review what's happening. So they always listen to past data. And now it's really, really hard for them to actually accept that they failed. How many people do you know really can turn around and say they're sorry when the economic facts are facing them clear in the face? And that's where I think they are. They're doubling down on their mistakes. They're doubling down on their economic errors. And they're doubling down on the fact that they're making Britain poorer by ideas that no longer fit our economy for the future.
But Stephen, I think what I'm hearing you saying is this isn't just failure of policy. This isn't just failure of execution. This is not just, for instance, the civil service pushing back against the elected will of politicians. You're saying that this is ideological. you're saying that whether it be a left-leaning Conservative administration, as we've really had since Theresa May, arguably David Cameron as well, and certainly now under Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper, you're saying that this is purposeful. So we rail on this station, and I'm sure on maybe one or two other channels, but not many, about the problem of uncontrolled and, open door immigration, let's call it. We ask ourselves and politicians all of the time why they can't fix this problem. And we kind of ruminate as to, is it that we can't get border force to do their job properly? Will the Navy simply decide that they're not going to put boats in the channel? Is it a question of processing? Is it the ECHR? It's none of those things. What you're suggesting, and I think you're right, is that successive politicians, successive governments over the last 20 years, really, they want what is happening in terms of migration, this influx of all and sundry. They want it to happen, and that's why it does continue to happen.
Well, I'd come to the conclusion that that is indeed the case. I mean, I was looking at the Migration Observatory from Oxford University, did a research recently on the attitudes to immigration in the UK. Most people, like myself, believe that it's good to have some immigration, but the vast majority now, for nearly 20 years, have said that huge open-door migration has a negative effect on the economy.
And we haven't even got to, sorry, we have to call it short, unfortunately, but we haven't even got to culture, society and crime yet. We've only focused on the economy. Look, Steven Woolfe, as ever, thank you very much indeed.